Wow. So I'm so honored to be here, and I want to thank Jane, Ann, and Felice for all the work and all the other folks. There's just more than three of them. Um, I caused a little bit of trouble getting ready for today, but I'm excited to be here. All right. So I only have 30 minutes, but I have like an hour of things that I want to say, but we're gonna keep the time. So I wanted to share with you some thoughts, and this is actually a new paper I'm writing. It's not even written yet, and it's this idea that we're in a new era of intervention science, and along the way here, I'm gonna be defining what an intervention is. And some of the things I might say are provocative, and I hope they are. And I would love questions at the end. And I would love you to interrupt me with questions during as well. That would be even more fun. All right. So, have any of you ever tried to define intervention science? It's a lot trickier than it sounds. You get into like this philosophy, but here's my attempt. It's a collection of all known interventions and strategies that are ready for use or already in use in practice. It's a collection of facts about these interventions, and then it's the tools we use to create them or evaluate them. That was my best attempt. And I'm arguing in this paper that the face of intervention science has changed dramatically over the last 15 years, in no small part because of implementation science. And I'm going to say more about this later, but as a new wave of intervention designs and research designs have come on board. And it's actually pretty cool to be a part of that. So here's the learning objectives. And even if I only get through the first two, that's fine, because you're going to get these slides, right? And you can email me. So we're going to review the definition of an intervention in actual practice. And this is going to sound elementary, but I really want you to pay attention to some of the nuances that I'm going to try to highlight, okay? It turns out that it is clear to me that not all of us are on the same page about what an intervention is. Then I'm going to review why an implementation strategy is just a special kind of intervention. And with that in mind, if I have time, I'm going to show you what I consider intervention science 2.0, like a new way that we're doing science nowadays, okay? If I have time. And I'm thinking of this as not a proposal. I'm thinking of this talk as from a journalist kind of point of view, like what I'm seeing as a statistician and methodologist, because I work with a lot of people across the entire translational health model spectrum. So really, that's kind of like the vantage point. Okay, so let's do it. What's an intervention in actual practice setting? And I wanted to keep this simple so we can understand it, but here we go. It's an action taken by an actor toward a recipient from a population intended to improve an outcome. That sounds so simple, but let me just alert you to one thing that might kind of blow you away. If a person takes their medication, that's not an intervention. That's provocative, right? The intervention was the script that the clinician wrote and the encouragement that the folks gave to help them take the medication. And that's a little bit provocative, and I think we're going to go head to head with some other definitions of intervention out there. And notice I'm talking about interventions in the real world. And we're going to come back to this idea. But I wanted to give you an example. This is based on a study that I did with Amy. You're going to hear more about this study later. Right now, I'm just going to show you the example with some pictures. So here it is, right? I'm going to put these words to action. Intervention is an action taken by an actor. And on this picture, you see the school psychologist. That's the actor taking the action. The action is offering CBT, getting the kid into the room, engaging the kid into the room to do the CBT. Not what the kid does, whether the kid does the CBT homework. Or, that's not the intervention, okay? And it's toward a school child that might have anxiety from a population, and the intent is to reduce the child's anxiety, right? That's the intent. And actually, there's many other intents before we get to that one, right? Like the little boy or girl, they have to do their CBT homework, right? They have to work with you to change the way they think, change the way they behave. So these are some pictures, and the reason there's a little cog here is because in the real world, almost all interventions, I can only think of like a couple that are not multi-component. There's all these little pieces. So that's my way of illustrating that, okay? All right, so a few things to keep in mind, because I realize some of what I'm going to say might be provocative. I don't know. But I don't see people with this idea in mind of what an intervention is. So notice the absence of a researcher in this example, okay? I can't tell you how many studies I see where we claim to be doing an effectiveness trial, and yet from the perception of the participant in the study, they're getting treated by a researcher. And there's ways to undo all that. There's good designs where we can break those down. An intervention is something offered or proposed. It's not something the recipient of the intervention does. Okay? It's huge. Almost all interventions have multi-components. Almost all interventions require behavior change. That's another aha moment. Okay? So it's funny, like we have the Society of Behavioral Medicine. In some ways, it's a misnomer, right? Because in the real world, all interventions require some behavioral change. All of them, even prescribing a medication. All right? And most interventions have multiple intended outcomes, okay? So I'm trying not to be dogmatic here by saying all interventions have multiple components, because it's not true. I was able to come up with a few examples. But I think this is largely true. All right? All right, that's it. That's the first part of the 20 minutes that I was given. Here's the second part. So many folks are not putting together that implementation strategies, this fancy phrase, is just a special type of intervention. So let me walk you through that. So here's an example. It's always good to show examples, right? So this is school-level CBT skills coaching. So imagine if you wanted to come to a school and get the school professionals to do CBT with their kids. Well, what's the implementation strategy? I'm going to show up at the school and do CBT skills coaching. Well, that's one strategy you could use, right? To get the thing adopted. So let me show you what that example looks like. Now the actor is an implementer. I can't tell you how many times I read manuscripts where the actor is a researcher. And this is all from the perception of the recipient. That's the key. The actor is an implementer. The action is going to be CBT skills coaching. And the recipient are all the school professionals at the school. Therefore, the recipient is the school. Okay? And this is from a population of schools. And the intent might be to improve CBT delivery. And you're going to see this example rear its head tomorrow when I give my talk again, where I kind of dive into a really cool study that was able to accomplish this due to Amy Kilborn. All right, so that's an example. Did y'all see all the pieces of an intervention are all in there? The actor, the action, the recipients from the population, and the intent. That's it. And I know it sounds elementary. And then, of course, in implementation strategies, we do have this distal outcome, this distal intent. But it's kind of far away, okay? Which is to improve the lives of the little kids at the school. Yeah, that's because I'm trying to improve that other actor's actions on the little kids. You see how it's all nested in there? All right? All right. I'm 8 minutes into my talk. If I don't get through the rest of this, I'm fine. And if you want to interrupt me, that makes it more fun. I really don't want to just sit here and talk. I want to have a conversation. So please jump in, okay? So again, this is like encore, right? There's an absence of a researcher. The implementation strategy in the real world is something offered or proposed, and so on and so forth. They're always multi-component. They're almost always behavioral, and most of them have intended outcomes. Okay, so this is not bad. I have about 12 minutes, and then there's 10 minutes for questions, but I really want you to interrupt me. And now I'm going to show you sort of like what I'm seeing from what I call the engine room of the translational health model, because statisticians, we have the unique spot in the world. I consider us being in the engine, right? We're the engine that keeps the whole translational health model turning, and I get to hang out with biological, efficacy, effectiveness, implementation, and even like community scientists. I really hang out with all of them. And here's what I'm seeing, okay? I wanted to say a few things about why now is the right time, because that's a bold statement, right? If I say intervention science 2.0, that's pretty bold, right? It's provocative. And I don't know, are we in 3.0? I don't actually know, right? I just wanted to get your attention with that title. But first, I need to define what I mean by intervention optimization, because that's at the heart of this whole new thing we're doing. And that's the process of identifying an intervention that provides the best outcome obtainable. That is the most effective one, the one that reduces anxiety the most, ... This is the punchline. In actual practice settings. That is, within key constraints imposed by the need for affordability, scalability, and resource efficiency. And that's Linda Collins' definition, and I can't think of a better definition. All right? So notice that the definition here of intervention optimization is already including the real world. And it looks very academic, so I tried to change her words a little bit. In actual practice settings, she says within key constraints imposed, very academic. But that's what we're doing. And so the whole thing is starting off in the real world. I got 1 minute left? Yeah, give me the question. Give me the question. Yeah, Jane, let's do it. Okay, we're recording. I'm 11 minutes in. Let's do it.
I have a question about this optimization based on most effective. I understand the constraints.
Yeah.
But effective, maybe like you're in a setting that has 50 people. It's highly effective for 20 people, individuals or patients, but 30 are missed, which has to do with reach.
Yeah.
So does that optimization include optimizing some category and form of reach as well?
Yeah. So what you're going to realize is that these concepts I'm sharing are going to get applied to the intervention that the clinician is giving to the patient or the school psychologist to the kiddo. And the same concepts are going to apply when we're thinking from the implementation strategy, which involves reach. Okay? And that is the key aha moment. But the only way to understand that is to accept what I said earlier, that an implementation strategy is just another kind of intervention. But when you're talking reach, you're talking the implementation strategy. The optimization of the implementation strategy. Here I'm saying intervention optimization, and I already convinced you implementation strategy are a kind of intervention. You see? So I'm totally with you though. And intervention optimization is not evaluation. So this is intervention science 1.0, all right? Which is to confirm the thing works. We no longer live in that world. So, okay, let me come back to why now is the right time. And this would be like a large part of this paper, and I only have 2 minutes to tell you. So I tried picking the top 3. So there's now a maturity and acceptance and massive excitement around intervention optimization. And it took us a while to get here, all right? It took us breaking down a lot of barriers to get here. But it's here already. And it's in a fast growing of effectiveness scientists. That's number 1. Number 2, all right, now this is the part that's about us. One small sector of implementation science community has already turned toward implementation strategy optimization to maximize it, for example. Okay? But another larger sector is struggling to implement EDIs that are not implementable. I mean, okay? This is like, I get this thrown at me all the time. So how interesting is that? But the thing is, the second one is actually bringing more attention to the need for intervention optimization. Because part of the problem is we never position things in the real world. But optimization is doing that. You guys see that? And then the third reason is like all that is happening. And then in the last 10 years, we've seen a boom in new intervention designs. Remember, when I say new intervention designs, I mean new intervention designs and new implementation strategy designs, because an implementation strategy is just a kind of intervention. So we're living in this crazy world, and there's so much more I can say here, but these are 3 to sort of whet your appetite and maybe try to be provocative. All right, so here's the research design. I'm 14 minutes in, so I'm doing pretty good, because I'm really cognizant that I want to let you want me to be closer to the mic, or else I get in trouble. Okay. I don't want to be in trouble. Yeah, the thing is, I work so hard on my slides that I want to get a little closer to them, you know? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Thank you.
On the prior slide, number 3,
Yeah.
resulting from technological advancements. Can you give a quick example of what you mean by that, please?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna give you an example later, but because I won't have time to dive in. So like we now have, like I'll give you three. I'll give you three in 3 different areas, but they're all related to the same thing. So I don't have my phone with me. My phone is constantly doing a little just-in-time adaptive intervention on me. It's intervening in my real life in the sense that it's taking all the sensors and it's sending me messages at the right time whenever I need it. Okay? That's one area. The second area, in the clinic, well, we saw what happened in COVID, but put COVID aside, right? We're moving very fast to a world where in between clinic visits, there's going to be some sort of way to, and in many places already is, for like your devices to be collecting data about you and connecting with what's happening in the clinic. So not only might I have my device helping me in my real time, meaning between my clinic visits, it's going to be talking to the clinician and they're going to be ready with all that information when I arrive at the clinic. Okay? That's the second example. Third example, if you fast forward to what audit and feedback and all these other things will look like in our future now, and in the implementation science side, same concept. In real time, when you walk into like a ward at the ER, you now see screens. All right? You're seeing screens. And that screen's connected to all the devices. And so that's just to whet your appetite. Those are just some kinds of examples of how technology has helped boom these new intervention designs. But they were already coming even before the technology, but really the technology is speeding it all up. So like this whole idea of an adaptive intervention, a clinician who prescribes a pill for your anxiety and then has to adjust it at the next clinic visit. Well, in the ideal world, the clinician is equipped with what did the process of that person's life look like from the last visit to this one, with clear data that is actionable, right? Well, I think devices and other things might help us get there. At least that's the promise. Who knows, right? Right, Jane? All right. I hope that answers your question a little bit. I know, I could do it for another hour or more. All right, so here's the research design. And this is a repackaging of something you've heard Linda talk about, Linda Collins. I've repackaged it in a way that I think is going to be more accessible to people. Because I think I see a whole chunk of people not really paying attention to this, and I think they need to. Okay, so I put numbers 1, 2, and 3 here. By the way, this is key for all of you that are juniors and getting into the world of intervention science or implementation strategy. I want you to think this way. The first thing I need you to do is, what is your intervention design? And I'm going to give you some examples in a second. You don't even think about research, please, until you think, what is the intervention class? It turns out there's a bunch of buckets of intervention classes. Which one is it? I'm going to show you a list. In the real world. Okay? That's key. Okay? You're not special because you're a researcher. All right? The interventions don't involve researchers. In the real world, what's the intervention look like? That's number 1. Number 2, any question you come up with is going to be in one of 3 buckets. And I still don't know anyone who's been able to challenge this. You're either going to be a scientist in the top one, which is you're preparing to optimize or you're preparing to evaluate. So like typically the people in this group are early career investigators, but not always. Like K awardees for sure are on the top. That's all their scientific questions are up there. But even very seasoned scientists are at the top because you got to do a lot of legwork before you can do a full-scale R01 evaluation, okay? So a lot of us are going to spend a lot of time in the top. All the observational analyses, they're all up there. Okay, on the bottom left, you have questions about optimization. This is the new one. And I'll talk more about what that means, but that means building the thing, constructing it, questions about how to package it. On the bottom right is, the top and the bottom right is where we were in Intervention Science 1.0. That's where we spent 50 years. And we know we can't keep doing that. How many of our interventions get to evaluation and don't show anything? Come on, y'all. Let's face that. And I really wish we had the denominator to know that percentage. It's like crazy. Okay? All right. Why is this a good idea? So this is also the why now, but the significance of this. We're doing implementation from the very beginning. JD's been talking about this. Amy's been talking about this, but the only way you're going to do implementation from the beginning is in step 1 is you're thinking of your intervention in the actual practice setting before you ask the questions, for Pete's sake, right? So remember, the second part is what's the question? The third part is to choose the appropriate design. So many of us in this room, I know this because people come up to me and say, Danny, I want to do a SMART design, or I want to do a 2-arm randomized trial. But they're doing step 3 before they did steps 1 and 2. And that'll drive any researcher bananas, completely bananas. Y'all, there's a whole host of research designs, and each one is suited to answer different kinds of questions. This is like, methodology 101. But I think we just need to remind people of it. JD is nodding his head, and that makes me happy. All right. We're being proactive about the real world. Number 3, we're going to reduce what I call crapshoot confirmatory randomized trials. Oh my God, you guys, how many randomized trials have I seen where, like, after they get funded, they're still manualizing the intervention? All right. We're going to avoid implementing interventions that aren't effective, ideally, and we're going to avoid implementing interventions that are not replicable. Oh man, I have so much to say about that, but I only have 2 more minutes left. All right. This is not a niche thing. Remember, I'm writing this paper from like a journalist point of view. I've never written a paper like that, but I think it's going to be fun. This is agnostic. Okay, this is another thing. Everything I just showed you, this whole thing is agnostic to the translational health model. I got 2 minutes left, and it's okay. I'm not going to get through my slides, but it's agnostic to the translational health model. So this is for all 3 of our primary communities: the efficacy people, the effectiveness, and the implementation strategy people. It's for all 3. So I'm actually arguing that even the efficacy people got to start thinking about the intervention step 1 in the real world. But I'm perfectly okay if when they do their science, they say, there it is. This is what it looks like in the real world. There's 25% of these things I'm not going to focus on right now because I'm doing efficacy science. That's cool. Okay. Guys, I've run out of time, and so I've ran out of time to dive in. But I'm and that's okay. Yeah, can you guys interrupt me? What I'm going to do real quick is I was going to walk you through, and it's going to take me 3 minutes, but it might generate questions, is I'm going to just walk you through a couple slides in each of these 3 buckets. Like, what is the intervention design? Some of you guys are wondering. Like, we now have single session interventions, multi-component interventions. Well, all of them really are. Adaptive interventions. We have just-in-time interventions. We have multimodal adaptive. We have group-based interventions, and so on, right? There's a list of categories. This is what I mean by step 1 is, which one am I going to be doing science in? Which one am I focusing on, and what does it look like in the real world? Not what does it look like when a researcher delivers it. Though I'm okay, because I have a lot of friends that are efficacy scientists and I want them to keep their jobs. I'm okay if when they go do their science, they say, and for purposes of this study, a researcher who's an expert is going to do it. I'm cool. But like, say it. Like, don't hide it. Like, you know how many efficacy studies I've seen, y'all? Where the intervention is described, JD. Check this out, all right? And you know what they didn't tell you? They didn't tell you that they paid the patient for parking. Okay? They didn't tell you that they called the patient's house, knocked on their house, and walked them to the clinic. Well, that's intervention right there. That's not research. You're intervening right there, and that's about as fake as can be. That doesn't live in the real world. I'm cool with that. You're doing an efficacy study. Just tell me you did that. You know what I mean? All right. So this is the intervention design. I was going to show you an example, but I'm out of time. So here's just an example of an adaptive intervention. I don't have time to go through examples of all of these, but you might start with a single session CBT and some monitoring. If you're a responder, you continue monitoring. If you're a non-responder, I transition you to group CBT. That's an example of an intervention. That looks very real world, and now I get to go ask my questions about it. Implementation strategies. There's a list of those too. So here, I'm going to show you an example of a class called multi-level mazes, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So, and I'm going to go into this tomorrow, but like Amy and I showed up at these schools. We did rep. Schools that were struggling, we gave coaching. Schools that were struggling some more, we gave facilitation. That's real world. That's in the schools. The implementer wasn't a researcher. You know, these are examples. What are the questions? Oh, the questions, I already talked about it, so I'm going to skip that. But here's the kicker, y'all. In the old days, we only had preparation and evaluation. That's okay. That's all we had, right? The two-arm confirmatory trial reigned supreme. That's in the old days. And we did have good preparation. I know Corrine, I've worked with her. She's like a master of pilot studies and preparing, right? In the new days, we have optimization, which is make the thing better. And what you need to realize is preparing, you can prepare to optimize or you can prepare to evaluate. Evaluate means, does the thing work? Oh, this whole thing about hybrid designs, in my mind as a statistician, these are just another layer of what's my question. There's actually no such thing as a hybrid type 1 experimental design. There's no such thing. It's either a two-arm confirmatory trial, or it's a micro-randomized trial, or it's a smart. Really like a type 1 is just, what is the question you're asking? Yeah, you have a question. Jump in. Yeah.
Hi, Danny.
Hey, what's up?
I also have a background in stats, so
Yes.
I'm going to go there.
Yes.
So I'm wondering,
Yeah.
and maybe the question is also meant to be provocative in response to what you said. Are you advocating that we don't do RCTs,
No.
that we don't do efficacy?
No, absolutely not. And by the way, the RCT, the confirmatory RCT, is not just for efficacy. The confirmatory RCT is for efficacy, it's for effectiveness, and it's for implementation strategies. What I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is, I want to see a world where we're spending a lot more time in preparation, a good chunk of time in optimization, and save the evaluation for when you think you are ready to evaluate it, and avoid these crapshoot confirmatory trials across all three of our communities: efficacy, effectiveness, and implementation strategy. So when I do a confirmatory RCT in efficacy, it looks very different from when I do one in effectiveness, and it looks very different from when I do one in implementation strategies. And the reason for that is because, and this is the other problem, I know I only have 3 minutes, Felice. The reason for this, and this is the aha moment that's going to be in this paper, is like, there's so much focus on the intervention developer in our science, right? The person who invented CBT. There's so much like person research that we call it, that person calls it CBT, and then it's called CBT the whole time as it's moving through the different communities. But y'all, I'm here to tell you that intervention, but from when it starts in the efficacy world, is not even the same intervention when you get to the real world. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It should actually have to be. You know what I mean? But that's okay. Like another provocative statement, it's an illusion that an intervention moves through the translational health model. That's a complete illusion. In my mind, the translational health model is just different communities of scientists grabbing the intervention and changing it. And completely changing it. But we continue calling it CBT. All right. Well, I've totally solidly ran out of time now. But notice, one thing I'm calling attention to, but I haven't taken any time away from Amy, which I refuse to do because she's very special. Okay, so notice what I'm showing you here. You see what I put in bold? Manualizing. I can't tell you how many people are manualizing their interventions while the trial is happening. No, you just can't do that. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. One thing that I think when people are getting into implementation science often need to differentiate, just as far as language, is implementation strategies being tailored and interventions being adapted, and we've sort of arbitrarily chosen what means what. And so I'm just wondering if you could, for us, kind of help clarify what's different about optimization of both of those things? Is it because it's dynamic adaptation, dynamic tailoring, or what's different? How do these things fit
No,
together?
the concept of optimization has nothing to do at this point in the literature with the adaptation. What you're saying, tailoring, that version of adaptive. Optimization, even if I didn't have an adaptive intervention, suppose I just had a single session multi-component intervention. Optimization is, what should you say? Okay, I'm out of time and I want to let Amy, what should you say what should you do? What are the components in that single session intervention? So optimization is a research thing. Adaptive interventions is an intervention thing. Yeah, so optimization is a research thing. Optimization is something a researcher does. This thing here is something a researcher does. We can get more into it, for sure.
Yeah, I would like to hear
Yeah,
more
I would
about
love
that.
to. All right. Amy, I promise not to take any time away from you. All right. Cool? Are we good? Yeah? All right. Awesome.